From DAV, I'm Matt Saintsing, and welcome back to yet another episode of the DAV podcast. Just a reminder, make sure you're following DAV across all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Just search DAV in the search bar. Sometimes legislation moves at a snail's pace, and other times it can give you whiplash. Well, there's been some recent movement on major veterans' toxic exposure legislation in Congress. The Honoring Our Pact Act of 2021 passed the U.S. House of Representatives in March. Since then, the Senate has been working diligently on a bipartisan agreement to pass the sweeping bill and send it to the president's desk. DAV Deputy Legislative Director Shane Liermann recently sat down with Senator Jon Tester of Montana, the chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, to get the scoop about the latest movement and the tectonic shift this bill will have on veterans of all eras.
Hi, everyone. I'm DAV Deputy National Legislative Director Shane Liermann, joined today by Senator Jon Tester of Montana, the chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. Welcome, Senator Tester, and really thanks for being here with us this morning.
It's always great to see you, Shane. Good to be with you, too.
We've never been closer than we are right now to getting comprehensive toxic exposure legislation enacted for veterans who've been impacted by so many different exposures. Can you speak to the importance of the bill and what it really means getting this finally across the finish line?
Well, it's been a long time coming, Shane. In my lifetime, I remember vividly the impacts and continue to hear about it today of Agent Orange. And we've seen the impacts of burn pits, previous generations. This has gone back to World War I and maybe even before that with mustard gas in World War I, radiation in World War II, and of course, Agent Orange, and now the toxic exposure of burn pits. And so it's been a long time coming. We've been working on this bill in earnest for over a year and a half. There have been times where it has looked pretty grim. There have been times like now where it appears that we're on the right track to get this thing passed. But what it will do for our veterans of all eras is make sure that any exposures they've had to toxins while serving this country in the military that impact their life with lung conditions or cancers or whatever it may be are covered, not only today, but into the future, because it gives the VA a framework to deal with toxic exposure. And I don't need to tell you, Shane, the VA has never been good at this. It's always happened, 20, 30, 40. In the case of hypertension, we're talking 50 years after the Vietnam War has ended. And so this has been a long time coming. It has happened because of great organizations like the DAV and you specifically, Shane, stepping up and never saying never and keeping on fighting as the DAV knows what it's like to fight. And that's where we're at today. That's why we're at where we are today. And this is a giant step forward for our veterans. It's a giant step forward for our military and our all-volunteer military as people look at whether to go into the military. If people aren't treated right, that doesn't work too well. And so, live up to the promises we made our veterans when they signed up and make sure they're made whole when they come back home. And that's what this is about.
This has been, I think, one of the largest coalitions of VSOs that have really been pushing for this for many, many years. We wouldn't be here without the work of so many other service organizations, as well as how bipartisan this issue of toxic exposure really, really is. Do you have a message for your colleagues in the Senate as we draw closer to this vote on honoring our PACT Act?
So we've got more work to do. Moran and Bozeman, and there have been others that have been great to work with on the Republican side, and Takano has been great to work with over in the House. But there's more work to do. This is going to cost some money, and I think that it is a cost of war, and so consequently, we need to have 60 votes to get this out of the Senate, and we are not there yet. And you know that, Shane. It's going to require some education moving forward. I think we're going to get there, but it's not going to happen without a lot of hard work by everybody. And so we need to continue to educate the people in the United States Senate so we can get this done and get this to the president's desk. This is so important. And we are so close to making this a reality. that we can't take our foot off the gas feed one moment. We have to continue to push. We have to continue to talk about the challenges that our military are experiencing here back at home after toxic exposure. And we need to get this done and get it in a rearview mirror. We got a lot of work to do. I've talked to Senator Schumer. He plans on putting this bill on the floor right after Memorial Day. So we've got about 3 weeks to double down and get her done, educate people and hold them accountable.
Exactly. And that's the point. That DAV and other VSOs are doing a lot of outreach, meeting with a lot of Senate offices right now, as well as using social media and op-eds and other things to get the word out. And I think the real important part for everybody to understand is this is going to affect so many generations of veterans. They're adding in hypertension for Vietnam veterans. They're expanding the locations of Agent Orange for Vietnam veterans. And then it's also increasing the radiation risk activities for veterans exposed to radiation. Then we get into burn pits and the 23 diseases being added. And let's not forget about the registry for veterans who served at Fort McClellan. This is, I got to be honest, one of the most impressive pieces of toxic exposure legislation that really has been entertained. We're excited. We're going to continue to push. And is there anything else you would like to add, Senator Tester, before we close?
Well, what I would add is this. When we have the joint House and Senate VA committees, lead off in my opening statement by saying, I'll take my direction for the people who have served, from the veteran service organizations, from the folks who are members of DAV and others. I think it's really critically important back here in Washington, D.C., that we do listen to what the needs are and that we try to get people on the same page. And guess what happened with the toxic legislation? All the VSOs were on board, with maybe one exception. And the bottom line is that makes a big difference. Moving forward, we need to continue to speak with one voice and continue to educate people and continue to get this baby across the finish line. We're too close to fail now. And so that is not an option. We have to win this fight. It's too important for this nation. It's too important for this nation's security, and it's doing right by the people who have served this country. We need to step up and get her done. If we all step up, if we all join hands, if we all educate, if we all hold people accountable, if we all talk about the situation and why this legislation has to be passed, we will be successful. And I want to thank you, Shane, and I want to thank the DAV for allowing me to say just what I said.
Well, thank you, Senator Tester. This has been a long fight, and there are so many veterans still suffering. Hopefully, this legislation is going to help a lot of veterans with healthcare benefits and everything we're fighting for. So thank you again for joining us today, Senator Tester. Very pleased to be able to have you with us. And DAV is fully behind the Honoring Our Pact Act. And we encourage everybody who's watching, every viewer, whether you're a veteran or a family member of a veteran or not, please reach out to your senators and let them know they must vote yes on the PACT Act.
To help get this bill across the finish line, you can reach out to your senators and urge them to act. And doing so can be as easy as just a few clicks away. Go to davcan.org to sign up for our Commander's Action Network. There, you can notify your senator and push them to pass the Honoring Our Pact Act. And while you're there, you can take action on any of the legislation DAV supports. That's davcan.org. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll share this episode with a veteran or a friend. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcatcher, or go to dav.org/podcast to never miss an episode. And please, rate us 5 stars. I'm Matt Saintsing. Until next time.